Aloha mai ka po. My name is Alakai Lastimado, and welcome to Understanding West Maui. Today we're here and we're grateful to have Dr. Sydney Iaukea. Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And first off, Sydney, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your contributions to the North Beach West Maui Benefit Fund?
Okay, thank you. So I'm from Maui, upcountry, and then I moved to Lahaina later. And in my early years, I was Miss Lahaina, the first one way back in the day. Not that way back, but back then. And then I moved to Oahu, and I've been here ever since. But of course, my heart is still on Maui. I'm genealogically connected. So I'm a lineal descendant for Kupuna by the swimming pool area. And also I can track my genealogy way back through archival records from the archives. So I have this deep connection to Maui, not only growing up there, but I just feel so close to the spaces there. And it really shaped who I am today. And I go back whenever I can, which is not too often, unfortunately. And as far as the writings, so Lance is a good friend. We went to school together. And I started with Keka, the Making and Saving of North Beach, West Maui book. And then I have 5 chapters in different books that have come out. So for me, it's been a chance to really get into the genealogy and the mo'oku auhau of the land and the people and the sea itself. Yeah.
Awesome. So yes, you mentioned your book Keka.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that. Keka, the Making and Saving of North Beach, West Maui, explores the conservation battles. Now, what should people know about this history?
So the history of Keka is enormous. And so Keka itself is considered the first capital of the islands. And so it's a vahipana. It's a site with the leaping of the souls into the next world. So there was a lot of battles right in that space. And then Ka'anapali, as we know, is on one side, and North Beach, West Maui is on the other side. And so the battle to preserve open spaces is what is covered in the book and what was enacted in the 1990s by different activists. I don't like to call them, activist is the word, but it's like they were just trying to save their community, okay. West Maui people and people from Maui and Lance as an attorney on the case. So Ka'anapali has this history of being commodified by the pioneer mill and the hotel industry. And so they were trying to do the same to North Beach. Okay. And luckily they weren't able to achieve the same measures. Yeah.
So again, you talked about Keka being a vahipana, mm-hmm. but yet it's also called North Beach?
So North Beach is if you're looking Kai, it's to the right, okay. of Keka, and Ka'anapali's on the left.
Okay, mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so now talk a little bit about the activists like Randy Draper and mm-hmm. Sharon Martin, and how did they shape the legacy of conservation in Keka?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Sharon Martin was the president of WAMPA, which was the organization that saved lots 2, 3, and 4 of Keka, North Beach. And lot 1 was interceded by the interveners in the 1990s. So they were all like the active players, along with Joanne Johnson Weiner and her husband, and a few others. They really stepped up to stop the development of what was going to be, or foreseen to be, another Ka'anapali.
Oh. Mm-hmm. So now in Tourism Impacts West Maui, your mm-hmm. chapter, The Restoring of Lahaina, explores Lahaina's history. So what does that title mean? Tell us a little bit about the title, The Restoring of Lahaina.
Okay, thank you. So I have restoring, RE-storing, because, so Lahaina has this deep narrative that goes beyond the restoration of Lahaina that was enacted by the Maui County Council and Pioneer Mill and AMPAC in the 1960s. So they wanted to restore Lahaina and have national designation with the United States to draw us closer to the U.S. in our ideology that we were connected somehow, which we know we're not legally, right? So it's a way of drawing us closer to the U.S. through renaming the landscape. Then you change the peoplescape. So restoring, they were looking at the different, not sacred sites, cultural sites in Lahaina that they could save. And the sites themselves represented this dichotomy between whalers and missionaries. And but the thing is that really all the buildings on Front Street were plantation stores owned by Japanese and Chinese families selling to each other, those that worked on the plantation. So they changed the narrative to make it more exciting for people that were visiting in Ka'anapali. And so what they did in the 1960s was they looked at Victorian design and homes on the East Coast of the United States and mimicked those and put them on the buildings and all the whaling stuff and all of this. Whaling was really prevalent through Lahaina with the whalers coming off the ships for about 18 years, but they restored it so that it looked like it was the main narrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, very nice. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how did the sugar planters in Maui County shape Lahaina into a tourism mecca, and how does this affect our understanding of the town today?
Yeah, so, thank you. So what occurs is that they pretty much silenced or tried to marginalize the real history. So Moku'ula, they do have some Kamehameha, his taro patch, a glimpse of it. Kauikeoli, you can't really ignore it totally, but there was this, they wrote it so that it was written into the American narrative with the help of missionaries. So they wanted to have a place for people in Ka'anapali to go after they were done relaxing for the day. So they enlivened it with this narrative that really, it's not necessarily false, but it's not all the way true. And so what that did and what that does is it silenced the landscape and other ways of being on the land and how we know our history today.
So we all know about the devastating fires that happened in Lahaina, and I kind of want to skip ahead to what are your forthcoming chapters that you have, excuse me. Kanako o Kekai, the Maui fire response. Can we talk a little bit about your chapter is going to explore the ocean response to the fires. What did you learn about that? Or tell us a little bit about that chapter that's coming up.
Yes, so we all saw the images of people unloading the boats to the beach. And it was so amazing to see the community come out in that way. And so this chapter was, for me, it was just super cool because I love to surf. And you saw all the, not only pro surfers rise to the forefront like Kailani and others, but you saw the communities come out. And so for me, it was a deep dive going back to Maui and talking to the people of Kahana, and come to find out they have that set up. They've been having that community interaction for over 20 years. So by the time destruction hit, they were able to mobilize, and how they knew how to bring the sinks to the beach and set it up because they had been setting up surf contests for kids in Kahana for over 20 years. So they were able to call on their neighbors and really show up, and almost to point out that no one else was showing up, right? And so almost to point out where was everybody else, and that devastation, what would have happened if they didn't rise to the forefront. So they really did step in and save their neighbors, which was just amazing. And then Molokai, they come from Molokai by boat every week to drop people off to go to work, and then they were saying to go to McDonald's and then go back. So we already have this interconnection between the islands where people know how to navigate these spaces within their communities. And the Molokai people and the Kahana people are related, so they're cousins. The ones that I talked to that own the boat ramp there, Uncle Cliff. And so just to see how, and it reminds me of growing up there on the other side of the island, at the canoe races. Everybody knows each other. Everybody I mean, it really is a community. Like it really does. It sounds cliche, but it really does take a village. And I think I wrote that in one of my chapters. Like, I am who I am today because of the village that raised me. So to go back and to talk to them, they're just proud members of their community. And the extra thing that, or the extra like barrier to their efforts was that Kahana was cut off from the rest of Lahaina because they were already restoring the bridge. And so it made it even harder to get supplies from Lahaina to them. And we all know, I mean, we read how hard it was to even get supplies into the west side of Maui. And so I think I learned two things, like the community resilience and also why did Maui County make it so hard, right? And how can they do it better, which is what they're talking about today, which is great. But to have to live through that, I think a lot of them were obviously very traumatized, and a way to heal themselves and each other was to show up for their community. And also like Randy Draper and others who pretty much started, or they didn't start, but they came to the forefront in the 1990s to protect that side of the island. You see the same faces and you see like their kids, but you also see like Randy Draper has a park in Pili named after him. And that was also another community hub that started and went for a long time. So yeah, it was just for me personally great to see people that I knew, people that I didn't know, and just to see how they're still Maui strong.
Yes,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I know for myself, I look forward to reading that. Yes, and I'm sure many people are, so can't wait for that one. Now let's go to civil society in West Maui.
Okay.
Talk about Olowalu. It was both a pu'uhonua and a site of violence. Now, how does the Olowalu massacre shape the land and its people today?
Okay, so Olowalu was a pu'uhonua, and for a lot of people today, it's still that site of refuge. And driving through Olowalu, before I wrote this chapter, it was just about getting through, right? You go to Leota's and you go to the general store and then, or not. But so I thought it was an interesting contrast that it's a place where people would run to, and today it's more like this place that we disregard in a lot of ways. And it's unfortunate because it has, again, the wahipana, the different navigational heiau, Mount Kilea. I have to look at my chapter, but it's where the petroglyphs are, and there's about 70 petroglyphs. And then at the top is one of the main navigational heiaus for Keale Kahiki, the path to Tahiti. And so it's connected to the different navigational heiaus on West Maui and upcountry Maui. And some even said like there's underground tunnels that connected them all. So it's like this whole just amazing sense of place when you're there, when you really get into where you are. And if you can, like, and when you go up and you're at that main heiau above the petroglyphs and looking out, you really can see the path to Tahiti. And so it's almost like you're seeing through the eyes of our ancestors or at least a glimpse of like, okay, this is an important space. Mm-hmm. And then the Olowalu massacre happened later with Captain Metcalf and his crew. And there was like a skirmish with the Ali'i in Olowalu, and they might have wanted to steal copper off the cutter, but they never did. So there was a kapu put on trading with the ship with Hawaiians. And once the kapu was lifted, families went out, whole families in their canoes to trade, and the men on the ship got the revenge and just killed over 100 people, and then over 100 people were injured. So it has this deep history of grief and devastation there too. And so it's that space that we're still navigating today, so that in that chapter, when the people show up to Malama Olowalu from the seawalls, they're like within that space of it being a refuge and also what occurred there. So yeah, there's a lot happening.
A lot. Yeah. So now the fight against the seawalls in Olowalu highlighted the dangers of shoreline hardening. What lessons from this fight should be considered when they're rebuilding Lahaina?
Oh. Move back from the shore. Realign the highway. Yes. So there's the Cane Hall Road right there belongs to the state, but they think it's private property. But there is a way, realign, put everything up away from the shoreline. Be cognizant of. So that space is a conservation district, it's public lands, and it's also a shoreline setback. So there's a lot of contemporary laws that actually protect that space. And so the governors would have these emergency proclamations and go in and ignore all the environmental impact statements, environmental assessments. And so it's the protections of the spaces today and the hard-earned fights that have gone into them over the various generations to make sure that these spaces are protected for different reasons needs to be respected in the rebuilding of Lahaina today. Yeah. And also the idea that we don't necessarily need to rebuild according to false narratives. It's a space to go deeper into the actual history and to bring those stories out and really represent them. Like, we're not beholden to Pioneer Mill for the most part today. There are other actors that try to exert power over the land, and they have ownership, but we're in a different space where it's more open, I think, than the 1960s through the 90s on Maui. And the activists during that time showed us that you can speak out, obviously. And so there's nothing wrong, or actually, I think we're charged with the kuleana of actually rebuilding along the true narratives of the space, as opposed to what would sell a tourism industry where most of the money leaves Hawaii anyway.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing. Now you talk about the true narrative, and so I'm sure there's a lot of fake stories and real stories of Lahaina. Mm-hmm. Now, why is it so important to distinguish between what is real and what is fake?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it just shapes our identity, but not only that, it pays respect to where we come from, and our culture is not for show, even though it has been, right? And so if we're in control of that narrative, then it's an empowering place, and it's just such a different way of stepping into the space, as opposed to when I was 19, I worked at the Sheraton Waikiki, and I left because I got yelled at. I write it in the book by someone who'd been there for 30 years. I went back to school. I was like, I can't do this, and we had to go to How to Be Hawaii or Aloha classes, okay. And I was just so offended. I didn't know why. I had graduated from Kamehameha Schools, and it was just a different way of interacting with my own culture. And so I think when we are able to step into the places of ownership of who we are and knowing the true narratives, then we don't need to succumb to these narratives that would have us be less than who we are.
So, all right, so your chapter in the historical investigations in West Maui discusses Gilbertese migrations. Mm-hmm. Now, how did these laborers shape the sugar plantation economy? Tell us a little bit about the Gilbertese migration and what they did for West Maui.
Okay. So Gilbertese came from Banaba or Ocean Island, and in the 1880s, and as one of the maybe second groups of migrators from the larger Oceania. And so I mean, this was a huge chapter. This is this is one of my longest chapters because I knew nothing going into it, and then there's so much information about this group of people that came to Hawaii, and their contracts were for 3 years, and then they were supposed to go back. They were promised passage back, but of course a lot of that never happened. And so there were two groups that ended up being stuck here, one in Kalihi and one in Lahaina at Pu'unoa Camp. where the old Honwanji was in Lahaina. And so they were brought by, so they went to court after their 3 years and fought Pioneer Mill because they said they were brought over as blackbirds, as slaves. And so it was this whole narrative of like, do we really have slave labor? Do we not? And so 90 of them stopped working at Pioneer Mill and made their statement and fought the case. And then the goal was always to go home. And so Hiram Bingham II helped them get home. But long story short is when they got home, Ocean Island, Banaba, part of the island has been drilled and left the island itself for phosphate over the years when they were migrating. So not only were the indigenous people migrating, their island was migrating. And so they went home to like a destroyed space. And then, but so they had the missionaries and the phosphate industry there too, and a new boys' school that was named after Bingham when they got home. So it's like this circular migration where they're under the influence of missionaries, industry, and religion. And so when I was writing that chapter, I just thought it was interesting, mostly the idea of like if you're connected to your space as Native and your space is no longer there, what are you connected to and how do you hold on to culture? And they hold on to culture from what from my readings pretty well, even though they've been relocated to Rabi Island in Fiji because the phosphate industry destroyed their island years later after World War II. So we really are privileged to be in our spaces, and to connect because, and it's an issue that's going to keep happening with sea level rise, and for a lot of indigenous peoples across Oceania, and even for ourselves, so we have to either retreat from the shoreline or go somewhere else. But luckily, we have our mountains, as does Tahiti and other spaces. But still, we are interconnected to what happens in other places of Oceania, way more than we are to the continental United States, because that's part of our genealogy. So I think what they contributed to their stay on Maui was, again, that strong activism and also their own community cohesion. And they really did stay amongst themselves. And they all left together except one. And so 86 left and one declined. And I wondered who that one person is. Because he really has all these generations of people in Lahaina.
Exactly, yep, definitely.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important to Molamoka'aina, right? To hold our space and take care of our land.
Yes.
We need it.
Yes.
We need it. As our people, we need it.
Right. And it's the whole idea of like moving and migrations, and it's deeper for people when they considered Aina as part of their identity and part of themselves physically. So taking care of those spaces really is a part of that. Yeah.
Well, now after writing it so extensively about the land struggles and activism at West Maui, what are your key takeaways from your efforts and the impact that it had upon you?
So Honolua Bay is another one, another chapter, and saving Honolua Bay and conservation. And I'll finish with that one too because Save Honolua Coalition, SHS, Lance helped them gain their nonprofit, and he fought that fight as well. And it's still, we see that, this is on the side, but we see that boat that's stuck in there, right? So now they want to make it a cultural sanctuary or something so that you really save that space. So I'm not sure, but I think it's just a different layers of awareness and how we approach not only our own culture in these spaces, but the law and how we navigate and how smart people are to really engage these fights and how brave. And so every step along the way, as an overall thought on the people that really rose up in West Maui and across Maui, but our focus is West Maui, is that they see this larger vision that incorporates not just themselves and their families, but their entire community. And these communities include the outer islands. And you see that in the forthcoming chapter where everyone came to help in Kahana and Napili from all the islands. And they had to bypass like the National Guard and police and like whoever else was like trying to keep them out. So I think it's that desire and that need to step up, meet that with contemporary laws, and then also knowing our laws from the kingdom and how that set us up to really protect our aina. So that's the foundation of the land laws in Hawaii, has to look back to the Kuleana Act and others because that is our foundation. And so it's stepping into that space again of owning our history, knowing that our kupuna knew what they were doing, and that we have the right to go forth in that vein. Yeah.
Well, okay, sorry, before we let you go, you did bring up Honolua Bay, and I know that the Hokulea had a little part, in the history of Honolua Bay. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So Hokulea, that was the first port of exit.
Okay.
In their maiden voyage in 1976.
Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. Well, we'd like to say mahalo for joining us. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Alakai.
Okay.
Thank you
Till
so
next
much.
time, we'd like to once again say mahalo to Dr. Sydney Iaukea. Till next time, ahui ho.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Me kanani ku kila kila o Lahaina